we at Railroad recognize the importance of Indigenous and non-Indigenous relationship, and we continue to learn to understand the history, present, and future scope of Indigenous people. I invite you to write in the chat where you're joining us from. I'm in Victoria, BC. We have a bit of sunshine today, which is amazing. So I'm on the same ancestral land as Railroads. Moving forward, here we are. I hope you're in the good room. So we are here to talk about the Master of Art and Master of Science in Environment and Management. I have with me Dr. Chris Ling. If you want to say a little hi, Chris.
Yeah, hi everyone. And maybe if when you're putting your location in the chat, it'd be really interesting to know if you're interested in the MA or the MSc or our MA on campus version, because that'll, that would help me know what you're going to be mostly interested about.
That's a very good point, because we have a lot of content to go through and a lot of small differences between programs. Thank you. And we also have Heather Wang with us, that is the program coordinator. And Heather will be behind the scene a little bit, answering most questions in the chat. And myself, Nancy, I'm an education specialist working with School of Environment and Sustainability, and I'm also a student at Railroad. And again, behind the scene, we have Alana that is with us. Maybe she will introduce her in the chat. She's enrollment advisor, so she can answer a lot of your questions. And I also have my colleague Emara Angus, that is an education specialist as myself, that will maybe pop a few links for us in the chat. Moving forward, here is the agenda for today. We have done the welcome and introductions already. We'll do a brief overview of Railroad's experience, the university, and what it is to study here. We'll go through program-specific information. We'll go through the application process, and then we'll answer any question you might have. So, first thing, why explore Railroad? So we have a few quotes here. We see life as a qualification. What does that mean for us at Railroads is that our admission process isn't just about academic achievement. It's about life experiences. So we look beyond the traditional requirement for entrance and something more important, who you are. The second bullet is prof who know your name. So here it's not big rooms of 100, 200 students together. We keep cohorts small with small numbers, and your professors will become your colleagues. So it's really a peer learning. You learn from each other with your colleagues and with your professors. Learning based on life. So you will bring a lot of what you're learning in the workplace into the school. So it's really like field-based focus, and you will do a lot of real challenge problem, if I can say, or anything that you experience in your life that you can bring to school. Connection for life, I couldn't say better, because the people that you will meet at Railroads, that can be your instructors, program coordinators, your peers, you will always be in touch with them. And many years after you graduate, some people are still in touch and work in projects together, share work experience, work opportunities. So there's really a beautiful network that gets created. And we were built differently. I'll talk about it a bit later, but at Railroads, we teach online for 25 years. So we really know the online environment, and we are built for working professional. So that might be your situation right now, but we really have people from diverse backgrounds bringing such a richness to the education and the cohort-based model, because people have so many experiences and they will all learn and work together. Railroad is a changemaker campus. Maybe some of you are familiar with that accreditation of Ashoka University. So Ashoka catalyzes social innovation in higher education through a global network of entrepreneurial students, faculty, and community leaders. And here, maybe you can use the reaction buttons now if some of you have been to Railroads before. So it's just a brief overview of the campus here. So on the top left, you can see Hatley Castle, which is one of the iconic buildings we have on campus. We do a lot of events. Sometimes we have classrooms in the castle that was built in 1908. And the castle will face this Esquimalt Lagoon, which is just below. So this is lovely when you're on campus, when you come for your residency or your on-campus program. You can go walk by the lagoon, go have your lunch there, meet with your colleagues. So we have 565 acres of land that you can enjoy. On the top right, you have the Japanese garden. We have many, many gardens and many, many gardeners too that we can learn from. So that's just magical to come with your family or friends, or just go at your lunch break again to enjoy the gardens, which will start blooming soon in March and April. And at the bottom right, as I mentioned before, that's the online learning for 25 years. So this is not something that we pivot over the past years as other institutions. It's really Royal Road was built for you to be able to study on campus or online, or what we call the blended model. So I'll pass it over to Chris for the program overview. I know that was a quick snapshot on my end, and feel free to ask me any question in the chat. And Chris, if you want to go with the next part, I'll just move it here.
Yep. So there's been a sort of few questions around the various delivery models. So yeah, there are essentially, for practical purposes, there are two deliveries of the BEM program. There is one which is the blended version, which is for both MA and MSc students, although you are all taught together for the most part in the same classes. That takes place as a blended program, which means you come to campus for, you start online in September, then you come to campus for 3 weeks in October, then you're back online until the next October when you come back for 3 weeks, and then you're online again, although largely at that point doing your capstone research, and you come back at the end for a 2-week final residencies. The on-campus version is only available to MA students, and that has just started for this year with students arriving on campus a couple of weeks ago. And that's all the courses in that are delivered in the classroom face-to-face throughout the 2 years of the program. That's really the sort of the difference between the blended and the on-campus delivery models. Do you want to go to the next slide? Yeah, there we go. So maybe skip over that one. There we go. So who do we have in our in the program? Well, the typical MEM student is someone who is already working in the environmental professions, or who is working in another industrial field but wishes to transition into an environmental field. So everybody in the class has some passion or deep involvement in practical environmental issues, either because they're seeing the need for that kind of expertise in their employment that's not currently being met, or they're fully engaged in environmental issues and want to learn more and want to expand their abilities to better fulfill those career aspirations. So some students in the program have an undergraduate degree in environmental sciences or more general sciences, but not everybody. And some people come to us from other backgrounds, and pretty much anything is a possibility. We do, in the application progress, need to see some kind of evidence that you're engaging with environmental issues, however, whether that's as a volunteer or something that's become part of your working life in another way. Our students aspire to managerial leadership positions in the rapidly growing environmental or green jobs sector. We work closely with Eco Canada, organisation based in Calgary that sort of accredits environmental professionals, and they do a lot of research looking at the variety and growth of the job sector, and it really is very rapidly growing. And increasingly, environmental knowledge and skills are valued in what might on the surface be unrelated fields, but are nevertheless incorporating, sustainability and things like that. Careers such as banking, for example, there's now quite an interest in sort of green and sustainable investments and that kind of thing. Yeah, we also have quite a lot of people who even have graduate degrees already in other fields and wish to have a second career or a second degree in environment for much the same sort of reasons. Yeah, do you want to skip to the next one, Nancy? Yeah. So talking a bit specifically about the blended program, the blended program, it takes 26 months and is 36 credits. A mixture of online courses and on-campus residencies, there is an ability within the blended version of the program to have electives that you can take between the first and third residencies, which is not something that's available for the on-campus program, because the electives at Royal Roads are largely online courses. So because the on-campus students, the assumption is they wish to be teaching in face-to-face environments, and so there's a more restricted pool of courses to choose from. So students in that program, their courses are selected for them based on what we have available that's appropriate to the degree. Both programs, whether on campus or blended, finish with either taking a thesis or a major project, and which one you take will depend on will vary the number of courses you actually take during the program, because the thesis is worth more credits than the major project is. So you need to take an additional course if you take a major project route. I'll go on the next one. So the on-campus program, so it's just started. It's 19 months in-person learning. So you're face-to-face on campus, so it's a full-time occupation. Whereas with the blended version, the idea is that you can carry on with your working life at the same time. You just have to come to campus and be away from that for those total of 8 weeks over the course of the program. You start with 6 months just of coursework in the classroom, followed by, and after that point, you'll select what you want to do for your research, and then you'll do a mixture of that research and taking additional courses. And it's very much designed and is ideal for international students that wish to come to Canada to learn. And the current cohort that has just started, for example, I believe has 18 different nationalities represented in that group. So it's very, very diverse. So it's a really interesting environment, and I'll be teaching that class starting in just over a week. So really looking forward to that experience, because it's a very interesting group of folks. And there is a lower cap in terms of the number of seats that are available for that class. So even more than the blended version, which also has an upper limit, but it's slightly larger. The demand is really quite high. So encourage you to apply early in order to ensure you get your space. Okay. So here's a comparison of the required courses that are in the two programs. Now, it may look like there are fewer courses in the blended version. And in terms of the compulsory ones that you have to take, that is true. Many of the ones that are listed as required courses for the on-campus MA are also available as an elective in the blended version. So, for example, legal aspects of environmental management, ENVR 571 is a compulsory part of the on-campus curriculum. It is available as an elective option for the blended students as well. So, although only, I think, for the MA students in the blended version. But as you can see, the core is very similar, and this represents the majority of your classroom learning during the two programs. So there's just catch up maybe with a couple of questions that are going through currently. If I miss one that you feel I need to answer, then please maybe repost it, because I may have just scanned past it without noticing it. Are the courses conducted live during the day, or can they be completed in the evenings for someone who works full time? So for the on-campus one, the classroom hours are regular daytime hours. It wouldn't be expected that you'd be fully engaged in employment at the same time. For the blended one, when it's the residency component, then you are expected to be on campus full time. And by full time, I mean, pretty much 24/7. I mean, obviously you can still sleep, but the understanding is it's an intense period of education. And outside of class time, you'll be working with your teams and cohorts on assignments and other things like that. The online components of the blended, however, are usually delivered what we call asynchronously, which means you don't have to be online at any given time. So you can engage in the classroom activities whenever is convenient to you. So yes, sometimes, sometimes if that's in the evening or weekends or whenever works. There's a couple of questions as well about online version. Neither of these options for the Masters of Environmental Management program are online exclusively. The School of Environmental Sustainability does have another program, which is the Master of Arts or Science in Environmental Practice, and that is completely online. There are no on-campus options for that at all. So if you're interested only in online, you probably want to be looking at the Masters of Environmental Practice, which I'm sure there's a webinar for that coming up at some point. Nancy, maybe if you can post that. But if you don't want to come to campus at all, then neither of the versions of the Master of Environmental Management are really a good choice for you. So the next on-campus program will start this time next year. So that's already been answered. The MEM program has never been fully online. So yeah, as I said, it's the Masters of Environmental Practice that is the online program. All right, I think I've caught up with the
I think so, yeah. I'm just looking at the,
maybe we can
question as well, yeah.
Maybe if we move on to the next. And Alana's doing a great job fielding some of those too.
So many links in the chat, thank you. Here we go.
Yes, so both the blended and on-campus programs have two options for your capstone project. So that's either a thesis, which is a 12-credit option, or a project, major research project, which is 9 credits. The main difference between the two is that the way I try and explain it, and these are the things on the screen are some of the sort of the official sort of definitions, but the way I try and explain it is that for a thesis research, it's about identifying an open question that there is no information about how to answer that yet. So you are seeking to answer that question. In the project, it's about, we know what we probably need to do, but you're looking to apply that in a specific context. So that's maybe not the most coherent way of describing it, but it's essentially, it's not based on a master's thesis needs to contribute to the state of knowledge that exists, fill a gap in knowledge, identify missing questions in the research literature that you can answer through your master's thesis. The project is more about applying a solution that you know exists and working through that. It's usually in the context of an organization, like a community or a business or something like that, where you are actively working with that organization to create a solution of some sort or another. question there about how does independent research work. It means that you are doing this by yourself. It's not in a formal class. You do have a supervisor, so there is a faculty member who will guide you and advise you in that process, but it is an independent piece of work that you do. You plan it, you manage it, you write the proposal, you figure out what it is that you need to do, you do that, and then you write up the report at the end. Basically independently by yourself. So it's not working in a team, it's not in a formal class where you have lots and lots of deliverables, although of course you will be working with your supervisory committee who will be supporting you in that process. So it's not doing it alone without any guidance, but it is fundamentally working by yourself on a project. And of course, the expectation is many people, especially in the project, will be collaborating with other organizations, but they will be responsible for managing the process. So I hope that answers your question. And I wish I could use your name, but I'm afraid I don't have the skills to read what I guess is Greek text there. So my apologies for that.
And I think, Chris, that leads to another question I just got in the chat. Is there a lot of teamwork in the program in general?
Yes.
Because I was chatting about the cohort-based model, and some people are like, "Oh, is that applied to this?"
There is a lot of teamwork. And I encourage you. Available on the Royal Roads website is our learning and teaching and research model, which is publicly accessible, and that'll teach you more about the approach we take to education at Royal Roads. But certainly part of that is that we put a strong emphasis on working in teams and groups to deliver outcomes. Now, in the context of an individual course, it's the majority of assessed work will always be your own independent work. There will be some team assignments, for example, but the majority of assessment will be independent. However, in the classroom and for those assignments, teamwork is always considered a very important part of that. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, wonderful. Maybe. And I know we chatted about who comes to the program, but could you tell us more about what people do after the program? If you're still in touch with some grads, would you know?
Yeah, I mean, all sorts really. I mean, we have a lot of people who, for example, work in sustainability offices, both in the public, private sector. We have people who are working as environmental managers for natural resource industry, such as people who are responsible for environmental impact assessment or reducing the ecological harm of resource extraction. We have folks who are working in planning offices in municipalities. We have people who run small businesses, such as in renewable energy, waste management. A large range of people doing all sorts of different things. And certainly you can find a bunch of them. If you hop on LinkedIn and just do a search for a Masters of Environmental Management, you'll find a whole bunch of our graduates on there. So definitely a lot of opportunities. And many people have actually got new employment opportunities as a result of people they meet during the program, and as a result of the work they did for their thesis or major project.
Oh, that's very good to know. Thank you. And I just see a question from Diana here. How many classes are the blended model expected to take at once?
Okay, so if you are working while you're on campus for the residency, those are 2 courses at the same time. But the idea is that you are not working at that time. You're taking leave from your work to come to campus. And those classes before and after the residency have what we call a pre and post residency online period, whereby, it varies exactly what you're doing. It's not usually very intense, but it's usually expected to sort of get started with your readings. Maybe there's an introductory assignment and then after a sort of final assignment. So it's not too intense. Then when you're online, then it slightly depends on what you choose to do with your electives. So there's only, I think it's 2 compulsory courses that are online, and you take those one after the other, so not at the same time, so only one at a time. Electives can, depending on what you choose, can happen at any time during the 2 years. And so you may choose to take an elective that's running at the same time as one of your other courses, in which case you'll be taking 2 at the time, or you may have it overlapping when you're undertaking your research. But that's one of the things you can use to help you decide which elective to take. If you're not totally wedded to a particular topic, you can choose them based on your personal schedule. But there's only a requirement in the online period to take 1 at a time. And just to sort of give you an indication of what work commitment that is, each course at Royal Roads is 3 credits, which roughly equates to 99 hours of student effort. And that effort includes readings, assignments, formal class time, working with your teams, and any kind of personal time you need to engage with discussions. So they're usually around sort of 10 weeks long, so it's approximately sort of 8 to 10 hours a week. So for example, that could be done, you might set aside one of your weekend days to work on it, or you might do, say, a couple of hours over 4 days of the week or something like that. And then there's a question, does the MSc program touch on land reclamation? There is one of the elective courses that's available to MSc students does cover land reclamation in a fair bit of detail. There's also, it's also a topic that may come up in some of the other classes as you go through it. Do students collaborate with business, government, or societies applying their ideas during the projects? Yeah, absolutely, all those, for sure. So yes, they do.
Wonderful.
But that will be up to you to arrange. So we can offer some advice and suggestions, but we don't necessarily supply you with projects to do. It's something that you need to arrange yourself. There are sometimes opportunities that come up while you're here that will be posted to students. If somebody is, for example, advertising the need for a project that a student could do, or sometimes faculty have research projects that they can engage people with, but that's a sort of very much an opportunistic situation. Broadly speaking, you have to arrange your own project or research.
Great. I'll move to the next one.
Oh, just actually, before we get on to this, and just to sort of cover the follow-up question, that is the major project funded by the university, industry, or the student? Maybe if someone could post a link to our student funding web pages, then that'll give you an idea of some of the options. You are responsible for funding it yourself, but there are grants and such like available that you can apply for. And sometimes it's funded by, an employer, sometimes it's funded by a research grant or a grant that you get as a student. There's a number of different ways in which funding is achieved. And many projects don't really require funding, so it depends what you're doing. Thanks, Alana. There's the financial aid page. So we've got lots of very experienced faculty that teach in the blended and the on-campus program. I encourage you to go and have a look at the faculty pages at Royal Roads, just to give you an indication. Not all these folks are necessarily currently teaching, but are potentially teaching or available as a supervisor, for example. They're all what we call, well, most of them are what we call research practitioners, which means they have a combination of both academic and research experience, as well as professional and practical experience as well, which we bring both of those to the classroom.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. That was so interesting, so much to learn and think about. So feel free to continue, everyone, to pop some question in the chat, and Chris and Heather can jump in. I'll just move to the application process now. And again, every time you have a question, you can use the chat, or you can connect with Elena or myself or Chris for more specific questions. So how to apply to Railroad? So we have two types of admission. One that we call standard admission. And as you can read here, to get into the program, we ask for you to have 4-year or comparable undergrad degree in a related field with a minimum GPA of B, which is about 3, from a recognized post-secondary institution. We ask you to have at least 2 years of relevant work or volunteer experience. And applicants who meet the degree requirement, but not the GPA requirement, will take a course that we have at Railroad with the professional continuous study called Academic Writing and Critical Thinking. And you must obtain a minimum final grade of B, about 73%. And the people that would like to pursue the Master of Science stream must possess a science-focused undergrad degree. And coming back to that academic writing and critical thinking, some people were asking in the chat personally, they were asking me, oh, I've been away from school for many years. I haven't been to school for 5-10 years. Can I still apply? So I think that course is highly recommend, because you're going back to that kind of critical thinking, APA style, all those things that we need to be successful in a graduate degree.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in there,
sure.
Nancy, yeah, that course is compulsory for those that are coming in as described here. Either their GPA is not high enough, or we're just about to talk about flexible assessment, but that doesn't mean they're the only people that are able to take that course. It's available to anybody. So if you, as Nancy said, if you do feel your writing might be a bit rusty, you can certainly take that course as a preparation in advance of coming.
100%, yeah. And I think PCS, that we call them, the school at Railroad, they have that offering almost every month. So feel free to have a look on their website and sign up if you need to. And what is very cool at Railroad is that if you don't fit in the standard admission, then you can always apply for the flexible admission. And flexible admission is not about checking a box when you apply online. It's really our team of advisors that will determine if you have the relevant work experience or not, and if they will assess your file with the standard or flexible. So if you want to get into the program with flexible admission, we normally require a 6 year of relevant work experience or an equivalent combination of education and experience. All flexible admission will go through that course, the academic writing and critical thinking. We assess on a case-by-case basis. And again, if you want to go into the Master of Science, we ask you to have a science-focused background. And at Railroad, it's really important to have the work and volunteer experience. They're both key requirements for admissions. And here that will give you a bit more information on this slide, how to apply. So it's pretty easy. You go on the website, you can start the application. It takes a few minutes just to go in the system. Then you pay a small fee of $128.81. And then you will start, when you get into the system, you will get your ID, application ID, and then you can start submitting your documents. So when we talk about official documents, it's an official transcript. So any study you have done in a post-secondary institution, you will have to share the transcript, and we ask the institution to share with our team. So you will send them to the admission team. We ask for you to provide with a detailed resume. And this resume, you really have to think about it, maybe not use a past copy of 5 years ago. You really take something that is up to date, that really talk about your volunteering experience, your work experience, your study in the past, so we can really get to know you. Personal statement of intent. That was my favorite part when I applied to my program a year ago. So you really write down on a 1 page why you want to be part of the program, what makes you unique. So this is your occasion to sell yourself, if I can say, and really that can be very broad. You can explain as well what you did in other institutions, what makes you special and why we should take you into that program. And when you write that personal statement, then you can share it with people, and those people will write the letter of reference. And the letters of reference, we like to have one that is academic and one that is from a professional. It doesn't have to be that way, but it will be very helpful for your application to get one academic, so someone that you work, one of your professor maybe in past institution, and someone from the work relevant experience. And then at the bottom here, if you're from outside Canada, you can have a look there and read a little bit more. There's a few extra steps that we will walk you through with the admissions team. I don't know if Chris or Heather, do you have anything to add on this slide?
Yeah, just a couple of sort of comments about the extra bits. When we say, and Nancy covered this a little bit, detailed resume, this is not a job CV. We want to know as much as possible. So, you know, the more detail you can put in, it doesn't need to be sort of just one side or anything like that. So the more information that you have in that, the better. And the same with the personal statements. You know, what we're looking for there is, especially if your degree isn't an environmental degree, or you're applying under flexible assessment, you need to really sort of state in there, you know, what it is in your background that makes you suitable for the MEM program. So that strong interest in environmental issues, and that's one way you can really sort of state that. I think someone mentioned, was there a word limit for that? I'm not aware of a word limit for that, unless there's a systemic one that doesn't allow you to submit anything too long. I would say that, you know, if you're going significantly over maybe a couple of sheets of sides of paper, then you might not be quite as succinct and efficient in your writing as maybe you might think. Because if it's too long, you know, we're not going to be able to give it the same attention as if it's sort of short and snappy. But there's no official limit at all. So
I appreciate it. And I think we can find more information on the website. So if you go under the MEM program, you can have the application process and requirements there. So you can find more advice and not templates, but how to organize your CV and your statement. And when I mentioned earlier that we assess case by case, that also means that even if the intakes you're looking at is in 6 months or a year, please feel free to start your application now, because every day we assess files. So you can be in the program that is starting in a few months from now, but please feel free to start your application now, not wait at the last minute.
Yeah, the deadline that is posted is not the date that we review all the applications.
Agreed.
The applications are reviewed when they come in. So you know, I would say, especially if you're interested in the on-campus version, which you know has a smaller class size, then I would definitely encourage you to apply as soon as you know you want to come. Don't wait until you know, the deadline, because it might well be full already by that point.
Yeah, very true. And at the same time, it takes a bit of time to ask your institution for the official transcript, to write your CV and statement, to get your reference letter. So yeah, the sooner the better. And here I posted, I think I saw a few questions in the chat about the next intakes. So we have the blended version that will be on September 6th with the deadline on June 6th. Deadline is mostly 3 months before the intake, so you're really set up for success. March 13, 2023 will be next year for the on-campus, Master of Arts, and the next year, March as well for the on-campus. And of course, the blended will have more intakes coming up on the website. If you want to sign up on the website as well to get some updates, please feel free. And that was something that Chris mentioned. So financial aid, we know this is a huge component of going back to school, or maybe you're already in school and you want to move to a master degree. So really our team at Railroad for financial aids, they have amazing resources. They have internal resource, but they have external one as well. So we talk about loans, award, research, scholarship, and other funding. So please, you can maybe print screen that slide here, or you can find it. I saw that Alana posted it in the chat. So feel free, please, to really connect with that team and ask for more info, because they're really there to support. I also see in the chat someone is asking me about the English requirement. So again, I invite you to go, depending of the program you're looking at, you can go on the website and you will find the information on how to move forward if English is not your first language, as myself. And then the next slide here, enrollment services. So we have Elena with us today that has answered so many great questions. Thank you. But if you still have questions, you need to think about it, or you're watching the recording, please feel free to email us at learn.more@railroads.ca. You can also join the international team at learn.more.international@railroads.ca. And if you're ready now to talk with someone or chat with someone, you can use your phone and just scan the WhatsApp code, and that will connect with one of us. And
if there's questions that those guys can't answer that they need to forward on to us in the programs, they do that. So if your question will get to someone who can answer it, even if it's not the initial receptor of that question. So there was a question in the chat as well about transcripts. I don't know necessarily the official answer to this, but yes, if you've taken any full credit courses anywhere for any reason, then we would like to see the transcript for those. Doesn't matter if it's not a degree, certificates, especially the case if you're coming in for flexible assessment, if you haven't got a degree, because that counts towards your flexible assessment. But it also, if you haven't had an environmentally related degree, that certificate may be where we're seeing your environmental expertise. I don't know how the year abroad thing would work, but we should be receiving transcripts for any post-secondary education that you have. So
that's correct. And Chris, I have another question here. What is considered relevant work experience?
Relevant work experience would be work experience that indicates that you are building up an experience in environmental issues. So this is a sort of graduate program. So the expectation is that you're coming into it with some level of knowledge already. It's a general program, so it doesn't have to be specific. It's not like in a sort of environmental chemistry or something like that. But we need to see that you're not coming into an environmental program at the graduate master's level with no understanding or experience of any kind of environmental issues at all. So that's what we're looking at. So if you can demonstrate, for example, that you may not be an environmental related field in your professional life currently, but you've taken on projects within that context that do have an environmental flavor to them, or that you've done volunteer work counts as work. So if you've done some conservation work or something like that, then that's all relevant. We do take quite a broad perspective on relevancy. If you're in doubt, then get in touch with our enrollment advisors, and we can ask the question once we know a bit more of the specifics of what you have.
Wonderful. And one last question I see is there a limit for student per country? Which I don't think so, but I prefer asking.
No, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, I think when we chat about limited seats, it's in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. I just wanted to acknowledge the question. Yeah.
In practice, we're getting applications from all over the very huge diversity of places. So that's just how it works. But I don't think there's any official limits there.
And I appreciate that Alana, our enrollment advisor, was chatting about if you're coming from abroad, you can expect about 6 months to get all the paperwork and everything for the application process and admission. So that's a good number to keep in mind.
Yeah, and then there's a last question here. For prospective students who may not be ready to apply for another year, are advisors available to discuss your circumstances so you can plan? Yeah, absolutely. The enrollment advisors can help with that. You can also apply now and defer if that becomes necessary. If you intend to come this year, but then for whatever reason, something happens that means you can't, you can defer your application.
I agree. I think we like to see that life happens. We know it, we get it. So we're always working hand in hand with hands, yeah, with everybody to make sure that you enjoy the experience here at Railroads. Thank you, everyone. I think that concludes. Is there more question? Application open for the campus on 2023. I get a personal request here. Yeah, so you can apply for 2023.
Yeah, you can apply pretty much for any time.
Yeah.
As long as it's not after the deadline for a particular intake, you can certainly apply now for courses in the future. Are the online courses normally held live, or is there an option to learn on your own free time pace? Yes, online courses are not generally live in that sense. They're what we call asynchronous, which means by and large, the materials are for you to access when you're able to. I mean, there will be start date for the course and an end date for the course and assignment and assessment deadlines during it, but you won't be expected to be face-to-face with your class and instructor at any particular time. If those kind of sessions are held, then they will always be recorded for those that, much like this webinar is, for example, for those that can't take part at the time they happen. So you should be able to, when you're doing online courses, you can certainly do it at your own. We'll go say necessarily at your own pace if that means that you're not doing the work by the deadlines, but you can certainly within that framework figure out when you're going to do things or not.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I think Beth as well, we have a lot of students from Ontario, so I think instructors try to manage sometimes the meeting time to be around 5 or 6 in BC, which will be 8 or 9 in Ontario, so we try to manage that with international students as well. Perfect. I don't see any more questions, so please feel free to be in touch. We will send the recording link in a few hours, and feel free to email us or email Adana or Chris or anyone from our team. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
It was lovely to see all of you, and we'll chat soon. Thank you.